I want to mourn the loss of all the old growth trees I've seen and tell them that we love them. It has to be a joke. I do not believe this is happening. I'm literally about to fucking kill myself, and I'm not kidding. You better fucking fix this shit. Running hate speech.
You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Welcome to Last Man Earth. My name is Lex Jurgen. As always, I'm flanked by Matt Ralston. This being Super Bowl week, Matt is preparing for his annual ritual of sitting alone, eating his vegan black bean Boca burger, and watching Cindy Crawford creping skin infomercials as he cries for the fact that he lacks the existential testosterone to enjoy football like other members of his assigned gender. Are you a Super Bowl protester, or do you begrudgingly watch the Super Bowl?
I usually do a few prop bets.
Yes.
There's some pretty good ones. Won some money last year. I showed up to a party at halftime because I didn't want to watch the whole game.
So I saw there's a prop bet out this year for Tom Brady's longest run from scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
It was one
half a yard,
1.5 yards.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't pull the trigger on that kind of betting. It's just too. I don't know how you don't get infuriated watching the game, or you just don't watch the game.
I mostly don't watch the game. Even if I'm at a party, I don't watch too much of the game. You know, I hang out with the women.
We do the grid. We do the grid, the box grid for the scores.
Yeah.
Just totally random, and then my little daughter wins every year and pisses everybody off. It's just, and we do it so you pick, and she actually picks the worst boxes and still wins. So, but it's the Patriots every year, so who gives a shit?
Right.
I have a couple Patriots friends who get excited during the game, but I mean, I kind of know, being a Warriors fan, I understand how people feel about the Patriots, but they're probably going to. I think they're going to win again this year. That's not exciting. This week's show is sponsored by the way in which people jump the gun on social media when they know so very little. Committing fully to speculation on half bits of information on a matter you know nothing about personally is the ultimate sign of intelligence. Social media, there is zero penalty for being loud and wrong. We're going to talk about Jussie Smollett. I think that's how you pronounce his name in a little bit. But literally, I was thinking there really is no... there's obviously a consequence for people like Kevin Hart when they do anti-gay shit 10 years earlier. But you can make all sorts of like just wild speculation guesses on Twitter and social media, and there's actually zero harm to your reputation.
Speculation of what?
Of anything. Of what, like, it could be the Jussie Smollett thing, or any crime that's committed, or some conspiracy theory you're involved in, whatever it may be. You can be the first. Everyone wants to be first. You can jump the gun on any sort of big story on what really happened, and be completely wrong. And 3 days later, be on it doing the exact same thing on another story, and you lose 0 followers and 0 reputation points.
I got come after pretty hard because this is before John McCain died, but shortly before, and I had theorized that there may have been some false flag events regarding his crashing of multiple aircrafts.
Oh, you're talking about historically.
Yeah, and people were like real pissed. I was accused of swift boating him.
But you weren't. You were speculating.
Yeah,
you weren't saying that. And by the way, that was 50 years earlier, so it wasn't like you weren't coming up with a conspiracy theory about his death, like that maybe the CIA was putting him to sleep, Trump was putting him to sleep, or something like that. Which you could do. By the way, really say it really loudly, and then when he dies, just wait for it to pass, and you could come out with other conspiracy theories.
As long as you don't apologize, for the most part, you're good. I mean, I don't know, stuff regarding gay people, stuff that's homophobic or anti-black or whatever. I don't know. I feel like some of that sticks with me.
Yeah. That's the derogatory stuff. I'm just saying, like, any news story that breaks now, you have to be the first person to comment on it. And we're going to talk about Smollett in a little bit. But like the minute, like within, say, 10 minutes of the story being announced, and the actual, TMZ, not TMZ, but like, let's say a legitimate news outlet says, we don't know much now, but here's what we know, and this is sort of speculative. People immediately jump to the conclusion of whatever it is.
Right.
Stick to it. We'll double down when called on evidence that shows against them. They will double down and then just ignore the story forever and pretend it didn't happen. And then a week later, they'll have another 10,000 people suggesting they're correct what they're doing. It's like the batting average is very low for people on social media, but it does not seem to affect whether or not they are popularly followed for news and information.
Well, look at the regular TV news.
Yes.
Like CNN gets stuff wrong constantly because they just need to say something. They need to have something up there on the ticker. They need to have their stupid ass reporter saying something. It doesn't really matter what it is.
But they always preface it by alleged or possibly, or they always couch it in some journalistic term just so they can backpedal if they need to.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, I guess they do denouncements, but that's when it's more opinion based. So I saw even in the Smollett thing, again, we're going to talk about that people were like, if it happened, this is really bad. Like, if it happened, this is like whatever. Versus other people who are just coming out, and this is just the latest example this week, just denouncing people, whatever it may be. There was that woman in I don't know if we talked about her, in Denver, like a school teacher who went on that Covington Catholic school like yearbook site, picked out a kid who she thought was at the rally, and it was just a kid from the basketball team who wasn't there, and called him a Hitler Youth. Wow. And so forth, and like, and then started doxing him online, basically. It's just like, well, she did suffer some consequence because she was a teacher, and then people actually, someone at 8chan anti-doxed her and gave all her information out. So it gets ugly. Don't forget to become a patron of the show on patreon.com/lastmanearth. Thanks to all our new patrons. Get on this shit now before it disappears. If you wish to contact the show, hit us up on Twitter at Last Minute Podcast or on Facebook, also Last Minute Podcast. On to the show. Now let's talk about Jussie Smollett. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. So I just learned moments before we went on air that Jussie is half Jewish. Mm-hmm. So, which no one's mentioning, of course. As a Jew, I'd like that in the hate crimes category to be listed. I know they're talking about a lynching and N-bombs and this black racism, but let's face it, his father's Jewish. So is it perhaps he was attacked? If he was attacked for being a Jew?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean,
no, since nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah, no one knows.
It's on his Wikipedia page.
He doesn't look Jewish.
Wow, that's pretty racist.
So Jewish guys have a thing for black women, right? It's like it's a known.
No, I thought it was Asian.
Point.
I thought it was Asian women. I thought it was tiger moms was the thing because
I guess it's just non-Jewish women.
Yes, I will agree with. I don't think I've ever dated a Jewish woman before. It's just something, I don't know. Some people just don't like people that remind them of their family members, I think. And they always date people that are completely opposite of how they grew up. Not for any bias reason, but it just sort of, I don't know. And then there's the people who date people who remind you, when you see a guy and he's got a girlfriend, it reminds you exactly of his sister or his mom. Yeah. How creepy that is.
Well, a lot of homogeneousness in the Jewish community in terms of personality, general demeanor. So you could be dating a Jewish chick and she would say the exact same thing that your mom said to you.
Wow, man, you wearing your MAGA hat and you have a noose? Do you have a noose with you?
No, I'm just saying if you're the prototypical.
Well, sure, but if you're like an Italian, you could say the same stereotype of Italian Americans and Irish Americans or whatever, probably black Americans. Like the black would be the tough old mom, hardcore with the spoon making whatever. You picture Aunt Jemima with the thought things. So, I mean, there is something culturally correct about that. But yet, most people do stay within their culture and race when they marry, ultimately. So, I think there is something there's probably the dominant force is that people do end up marrying a woman who's just like their mom. Mm-hmm. That probably overrides the guys who just sort of want to get away from it all. It's just instinct. But let's talk about Jussie Smollett. So, there's not been any. TMZ seems determined to push this case for some reason, based off of hearsay evidence of unnamed witnesses they keep finding, and the police keep having to deny exists.
TMZ is pushing for it to be a story?
Yeah, to be a racist, homophobic, racist attack. And I don't know if they're doing that for political reasons or just because that's the most salacious aspect of the story. And if it's not true, they look pretty shitty they broke the story, essentially. And they pay people, of course, for tips. So that you always have to be wary of that, although they have broken some legitimate stories, sort of like the Inquirer. They've broken some legitimate stories before.
But they're mostly just going off what he has said, right?
No, they have the neighbor lady now who says she saw like a rope, like a noose around his neck, which is unclear exactly what that means. that would be 40 minutes after the attack. He would still be wearing the noose.
Yeah, it's like when you get in a car accident, you just stop on the highway.
Yes.
Like, don't, you're not supposed to do that, and you will die. But, that's what people do. No, of course you wouldn't still have the noose on your neck.
No, why'd you have the noose? Like, if someone actually attacked you, black or white, whatever it is, and put a rope around your neck, and, you would take it, I would assume you'd take it off as soon as humanly possible because it would be really frightening and scary and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so to have it on 40, this would be 40 minutes after the attack to have the noose. And it's not like it was bound to him. We couldn't get it off. It was just, it's unclear whether it was a rope or string. And also the fact they have like released the photos of the Slender Man unidentified figures from a camera.
2 guys.
Persons of interest, which essentially means they were in the general. So Smollett won't say where the attack took place specifically. I mean, he says the area, but he won't say specifically on the street where it happened. And also he has not he won't turn over his cell phone because he did claim that he was speaking to his manager at the time of the attack, which seems kind of odd.
2 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible if he's drunk, maybe he's calling his manager / friend. It's possible, but he won't release his cell phone to give police evidence of that fact.
And there are no, I just saw in passing that there were possible witnesses of the attack. Is that not?
No,
that's not true?
No. They have, Chicago, which is, by the way, downtown Chicago, probably the least redneck places you'll ever visit in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Streeterville, where this took place, is a very sort of upscale, progressive, diverse, heavily gay area of town. And again, the thing about these stories is there's no way to deny that like 2 crazy ass rednecks would invade like the gay part of town, gay or black part of town, gay black part of town, and like find a victim to beat up. That's always possible, and yet it almost never happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I look back at the history of just a brief history of like sort of high profile hate crimes against like celebrities and black actors and gay actors. It's actually very rare that they are attacked by strangers. Like very, very rare. Like in a hate crime, like, damn you gay, I'm going to kick your faggot, I'm going to kick your ass, or N-bomb, I'm going to kick your ass and getting beat up. It actually is. I don't know if you can think of any. It's very rare.
No, I feel like the redneck guys are usually in their own environment or in like a neutral environment, and then someone they hate crosses their path, and that's when the attack occurs. But they're not going out and driving out to West Hollywood to pick on gays.
No, like how many times you live in West Hollywood, the center of gay celebrity on the West Coast? How many times have a couple like rednecks come in a truck with like masks on and nooses and bleach and attacked like gay men or black men in West Hollywood?
Never.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
No.
I mean, there was a couple guys that got punched. Like there were some minor incidents of people got into it, in a line at a club or whatever, and both parties shot off at the mouth. I don't know if that's a hate crime just because the guy says fag or whatever, but maybe it is. I don't know. But point being, it's not like it's not like in a movie where they're cruising down in the in the Chevy pickup truck, because there's nowhere to park that anyway.
Even on the show, I'm watching the show, the third season of True Detective, which is a well written show. But it's written by, it's about Arkansas in the 1980s, so there's a lot of racial elements and redneck elements. But it's clearly written by a guy who lives in Hollywood because it's just some of the elements are so cliche to how they think things happen. There literally is still like the guys hop into trucks together into each other's 4x4s and get like 2x4s in their hands to go beat up the person they don't like in town. Like the rednecks get together and actually like hoot and holler and get in the truck and drive down the road like and try to knock people off the road, then beat them up and tell them to get out of town. Which probably happens, but I'm not sure the people who are writing these stories have ever actually seen it happen outside of another movie.
I mean, in the 80s, I don't know. It kind of happens, but like you see that movie 3 Billboards over Missouri or whatever, and the chief of police is like, or not the chief, but the Sam Rockwell character is like this unhinged lunatic, and he's just doing all these things that would see him fired and arrested immediately. Right. But in the reality of this movie, it's like everyone's a racist except for the one lady or something.
Yeah, I always believe it's like a lot. And I lived in the South for at least 2 years, over 2 years, And what I found was there's a lot of racism for sure. It's very kept very low key.
Yeah, I mean, even in those really crappy towns, the chief of police, the police in general, they may be largely racist as well, but whoever is in charge of that organization is not going to allow this kind of thing.
No, they're not,
for a number of reasons.
They're not hooting and hollering and waving 2x4s in the air and yelling, "Let's go in Jimmy Bob's pickup and go kill some minority, beat some minority."
They're going to arrest you. They might let you go the next day without, doing anything about it, but
what struck me was in the South, it was very there was a white part of town and the black part of town. This is in Georgia, and so there was obviously a systemic racism, but it was very peaceful. It felt like a very peaceful, like it was just a segregated, like, oh, that's where the blacks live and shop. Here's where the whites live and shop, and hey, this is working out great, which to me was like just perverse. But it was when I lived in northern cities like Boston and New York where actually attacks occurred, like where there was violence between races, and like in Boston where the guys would come out with the white guys would come with the golf clubs and start beating black kids or whatever. Mark Wahlberg chasing Vietnamese guys with the actual 2x4 and blindsiding the gooks, yelling "gooks, get out of town." It seemed like the northern towns, the cities actually had like the actual acts of violence, whereas the southern town just had that sort of long-term simmering under the radar sort of systemic race and like separate water fountain type racism.
Yeah. Plus, in the South, I don't know how many people. There are people that think Christmas is being taken away, and
sure,
there's one gay guy in town, and next he thinks now his kid's forced to be gay or something. But I don't feel they feel as much under siege in terms of like if you're just outside of Seattle or Portland or San Francisco. Those are straight rednecks, but they probably feel more threatened because their town essentially is being taken over by gay people.
Right. Yeah.
Which
there
is
aren't
fine,
many.
but-
You're talking about the one gay guy like in a Mississippi town. He probably moved a long time ago.
Yeah, he moved to San Francisco.
There's just no way. Speaking on behalf of the Jews, I'll tell you, we got out of these redneck places as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And now we're in New York. So I don't under. I mean, so it's what happened so they have Chicago has a large number of closed circuit cameras, like more than any other city apparently. So one thing I noticed about like I watch all these BBC detective shows, and London is just littered with CCTV cameras. Every block has them. Mm-hmm. They put them up during the IRA uprisings and so forth. So every detective story that takes place in London always involves them going to the CCTV cameras, and they see everything. Mm-hmm. They literally see everybody's movements. And that's something we don't think about here. But Chicago has a large number of the cameras. And so apparently they have him, Smollett, tracked for all but 60 seconds. And they don't see him attacked. So there's only 60 seconds where he's off camera.
It's not enough time to pour bleach on someone,
attack them, and
put a noose around their neck, beat them up.
Don your MAGA hats, which you're not wearing.
He should have known better than the MAGA hat detail. Like, that's just so way too on the nose. Bad writing on his part.
Right. That and the noose was a bit much.
The noose was too much. Wait, so his neighbor of where he lives saw him coming back still wearing the noose?
Yes, that's what she claims. This would have been about approximately 40 minutes after he claimed he was attacked.
And he won't say precisely where it happened because he doesn't know, or he's just not divulging this?
He says he doesn't remember exactly where it happened. He also claimed he had broken ribs, which the police are refusing to verify. He definitely had a punch. He definitely looked like he got punched in the face.
Yeah,
he had a good nice size scrape on his face. I don't think he punched himself, but it's unclear when he could have sustained that injury.
Did he report this to the police?
No, his neighbor called to the police. Right. Also, he had that letter a week earlier of cutout magazine magazine.
Another
letters.
Movie trope he used. This guy
threatening. I mean, I was thinking about how easy would it be if you want to stir up, say, hate crime. If you're a minority, you'd have to be a minority. It'd be really easy to just say, like, some dudes jumped out, dropped an M-bomb, punched me, and ran away. Mm-hmm. And it'd be almost impossible to disprove that happened. I mean, because it probably does happen, on not such a rare occasion, but at least it would be such a quick and minor and random incident that it'd be impossible to disprove it didn't happen. But yeah, you started adding all these details in, which just has everybody wondering, well, some people wondering, like, nah, this couldn't have been this elaborate of an attack. He would have a stalker. And by the way, I don't know if you ever heard of him before this week. No. I've never, ever heard of this guy.
No, but that doesn't mean much. He's on a show. I know that. He used to be on Nickelodeon.
He was a kid actor. He was in the Mighty Ducks. Did you know? I went through his wiki page. He was in the Mighty Ducks and that movie North with the Rob Reiner directed movie North.
So there's no footage of the attack, and there is 60 seconds unaccounted for.
There's 6 seconds unaccounted for,
and I'm assuming that he is now going to claim that is the time frame in which he was attacked, because really, what else would he have to go on?
I don't think I think he doesn't have to claim anything at this point. I mean, he's a victim of the crime.
Well, a lot of people are talking about him possibly being a liar. Like, we're not the only ones talking about this.
But if he is a liar, I assume if he's lying, let's say my theory is, I think one of your theories is that he's just trying to drum up publicity, or he's trying to create a name for himself, or just create agitation of some type. I would say it's probably more likely he has a disgruntled ex-boyfriend lover who is threatening him, and he doesn't want to turn that person in. You know, when he got the letter, he realized it was from that guy, probably a bad breakup of some kind. He's like, I don't want to turn this guy in and have the FBI, like Fox probably called the FBI. I don't want to have this guy fucking do 5 years in jail.
Right. That's probably, again, why he didn't report it to the police. He reported it to Fox, I guess, but...
and then this dude came and confronted him and beat him up or punched him.
As if this guy's a racist stalker,
yes.
And he picked Jussie Smollett
yes,
of all the black people to
half black, half Jewish,
hate.
Yes,
and target. He picks like a random cast member who's essentially obscure on a
That's
show.
the thing. I don't know that second tier. I know second tier actresses are hot, like models and attractive, have lots of stalkers. I don't know that second tier actors have lots of stalkers. Like, I wouldn't think like a dude who was on a TV show you heard it before, who played a secondary role, would have like. What kind of stalker would randomly pick that person out?
He wouldn't.
He'd pick Terrence Howard. He'd pick someone else from the show. And Terrence Howard would be a great person to stalk, by the way.
And stalker guy. A guy who writes. First of all, a guy who writes a letter like he's in a Batman movie
right.
in 1950, who actually writes a letter with cutout magazine letters,
right.
Which is fucking hilarious. I don't know whether someone actually wrote that. I don't know if Smollett made that. Who knows? But that letter guy is not the same guy that then tracks you down
in Chicago.
Probably far, far away. So he just happens to live in the same city, or he flew to Chicago to assault you.
Well, it was two guys. So he claims it was two guys
He
who beat him
found a
up.
friend to go along with his plan. Because, that's... Hey, man, do you want to go... do you know Jussie Smollett? No, I don't. He's on that show. Do you know that show? No, I don't. Anyway, what do you want? Oh, I got some bleach and a noose.
Yeah,
we're gonna head down to Chicago. It's it's a 4-hour flight from Orlando. You want to go? No, I don't.
No, it's just
no. You're insane.
It doesn't. There's just. It would be the craziest if it was true. It would be like the craziest story ever. Which is, and by the way, so Smollett grew up as a kid actor, so he's been around Hollywood his whole life. So that makes me believe he creates things as well. He also, by the way, has an album coming out. He has his first musical album coming out, and he's giving a thing this weekend in West Hollywood. He has a performance, and he's gonna have a rally. So I mean, look, if he really just say I got punched, again, I don't understand why he just like some guy yells racial slurs at me and punched me and ran away, and that'd be the story, and everyone else could do their thing where everyone from the show Empire and everybody else has to like. Tell them what a horrible thing this is. And obviously, here's a good thing. You can speak out against racism and homophobia regardless, but it's just kind of ridiculous that on this one you have to like use this example as the horribleness of racism in the United States when it seems like he's clearly making the story up.
Yeah. So what's going to happen? It's going to sort of eventually everyone's going to come to a tacit understanding that he made up some of it, if not all of it.
Yes.
And we'll figure out what happened, and we'll figure out he's a liar. And then, like, he'll continue to have rallies, and people will show up, and he'll be like, we'll forget about the fact
Kesha.
that
He'll be like the black Jewish gay version of Kesha, who's only Jewish and maybe gay. I don't.
Yeah, and like fucking stupid 20-year-old twats that work for Huffington Post will still like be writing flattering articles about him, and dumb. Like just straight up dumb people that don't think about things will like hold him up as like some kind of civil rights activist.
Yeah, Rose McGowan, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, you read her Twitter feed when she has another book coming out, and there's just like 1,000 women writing about what a amazing spiritual guru she is for them, truth teller. I mean, they're literally calling her a truth teller in a time of liars. Like, really? That's like, I mean, there's just there's such a disconnect between what people want to believe about other people and what's the reality that you can't really,
And that's why we're incentivizing assholes like Jussie Smollett to embellish or I'm not going to claim I know exactly what happened, but I kind of know that the way he's making it seem that that's not what happened.
No, it would be the first time anything like that ever happened in this country throughout the entire history of.
But aren't we just encouraging these people to keep doing these publicity stunts when there's no backlash, there's no repercussions for when it's obvious that you're lying?
I think it's tougher and tougher in this day and age to pull this shit off, because look at all the evidence that's coming out with all the cameras and all the everything else in the media and everybody everybody on the internet being their own sleuth. I think it's harder to get away with verifying these stories when they're fake.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people don't seem to care whether or not they're fake. So there's a counter to that, which is like, okay, so all the evidence now. I mean, what do they have? They have a picture from the Chicago police saying 2 persons of interest because 2 people happen to be walking in the general vicinity about the general time. And by the way, most people that have looked at it closer think it's 2 black guys walking along the street, but definitely hard to tell who they are. And they're calling persons of interest as if that is like sort of evidence that a crime occurred, because there's 2 people on the street like a block and a half away at the same time.
People are just going to believe what they want to believe anyway. I mean,
I think the police are slow walking it too. I would imagine like a cop who's been around for a number of years, detective, knows right away what's happening, but they have to slow walk it because they can't come out and call the guy a liar.
Yeah, just on the 0.1% chance that he's not lying,
or just the fucking if you're Chicago PD. You can't come out and say a claim of racism is a hoax like right away. I mean, that department has a horrible reputation.
So they're just going to slowly start kind of poking holes in his stories.
I think they're just going to let it
or
go.
Just forget about it.
They'll call it an open case. Matt, you loved opera. Between the 2 of us, you love opera. Have you been to an opera before?
No. I would be open to going, but
really?
I haven't been.
I went to, was it opera or ballet? I can't remember once. I went to symphony one time. I fell asleep. I have the great ability to fall asleep during things that are of no interest to me. I can just instantly fall asleep during an event.
I could fall asleep during a symphony. I could fall right asleep.
Yeah, I don't care how loud it is or how inappropriate it is. If it's something like, if I take the kids to would take them to some shitty animated movie, I just 2 minutes in, I fall asleep for an hour and a half. And I wake up when it's over.
Why do you even need to be there? Would be my question.
Well, you have to.
Why don't you just go watch your own movie?
When they're little, you gotta be there as a parent.
What are you gonna do? Some child molester comes up, you're asleep. You're serving no purpose.
It's true, and I have to tell the person next to me, if I start snoring, just hit me. So this story, I love this story. David. I don't know if you have the trading cards of your favorite opera singers, but David Daniels, I guess, is a famous young male opera singer.
If you don't have like a hardcore Guido Italian name,
yes.
I have no use for you as an opera singer. David Daniels.
Yes, well, so he's a music professor at University of Michigan, but apparently he's also a whatever you call it, a opera diva, whatever the male version of diva is.
Like a tenor.
Yeah, he's in big time production. I mean, he's in big time productions. He gets called in for big dramatic shows on wherever they are in New York. He's performing at New York Opera House, so forth. So he's not like a little guy, I mean, if you're in the opera world, I assume you've heard of him. And he married his conductor husband, Scott Walter.
Okay.
It's always nice when 2 guys in the same business get to fall in love with one another.
And only talk about opera all the time.
Yeah.
I guarantee that's their only.
Well, no,
topic
that's
of
not the only thing they talk about, because apparently 8 years ago they raped a man in Houston.
Oh.
Yes. Although, this is one of those stories, we just talked about Jussie Smollett, where a young 20-something opera student, 8 years later, claims he was raped by these 2. I guess they were not married at the time, but 2 opera singer and conductor. And so, you have to.
But doesn't he's not looking for money, right? Doesn't he just want to get it out there?
Well, he went to the police. He filed an official police report. I assume he will be suing at some point. But he did, he's not just extorting them. He went to the cops. They were, of course, denying it. But this brings up also The best thing about this couple too, before they raped this guy, is they were married by Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh,
How about that for a fun? How about that for a fun fact?
she's a judge. I guess that allows her.
Yes.
Yeah, she's like a, what do you call it? Notary.
Like a captain of the love boat. She can do international water marriages. No, she's a judge. I mean, she's a real judge. She can do a marriage.
Oh no, she's
I assume they
she's a
don't often
judge,
do.
for sure,
I assume the Supreme Court justices don't often do marriages, but I think this was a high. I assume an opera fan, and these are two high-profile people in that world.
Was this like a corporate gig for her? Like they flew her in, put it up at La Quinta.
Yes.
She marries two gay guys and goes back to.
Do you know that a little bit of personal trivia? The guy who married me and myself and my wife was a rabbi who does the death row inmates services at San Quentin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's all I could find. It was like I couldn't find anybody to do it. And so I found this guy, and he counsels the guys. They have to have death row has to keep different ministers from different faiths on call.
There are a lot of Jewish guys on death row?
No, not really, but it's a good gig. A Christian could ask for a rabbi if they wanted to, or so forth. But they have to keep. There has to be someone officially from each religion, basically, around to counsel the people on death row before they die, before they hit the chair. Or I think they actually get lethal injection in California now. And but he was like, literally, I got him, like, paid him cash. He was just a mercenary. He was just a mercenary marrier. And he comes in for like 10 minutes, marries you, and leaves.
Did he seem psyched to be doing this instead of talking to a guy that might murder him?
No, I don't know that he actually does. I mean, he was on death. He works with death row guys, but like you said, there's not many Jews on there.
But just being...
So I think he had a lot of free time, so he did.
Being on the premises
Yes.
of death row cannot be a good vibe.
I would say he was very...
Can't be great for your
He was
psyche.
more of a mercenary rabbi, a transactional guy. He
Right.
came in, he asked for the check, and he left 10 minutes later.
Typical.
And when we were a minute late, he started tapping his watch. So I guess RBG does the same thing. Like, you can book her. Yeah, you can just book her. Like, is she like on Craigslist? She has like a little thing, like need wedding, high profile wedding. Don't come cheap, but if you're the right gay couple, I'll come and marry you.
The left really needs better heroes.
Yes.
I mean, nothing against RBG, but
I actually like RBG, except that she seems to now just be trying to hang on to live until Trump's out of office.
I like her too, but
until Trump's out. I picture her like with interferon injections. Like,
why am I looking at like a video of her working out and doing a fitness routine? Like,
oh, she's in a Lego. She's in a new Lego movie.
She's a good judge, but she's not like a badass.
No,
like
they've never.
She's not like ironically cool the way they're trying to make her.
I don't think they've ever been able to turn a Supreme Court justice into a cool person. I mean, a Thurgood Marshall, guys who were groundbreakers, but even they, I bet you probably wouldn't like very much in person. No. They're judges. Who likes a judge? So here's a question out of this opera/conductor rape of young male story. Man, we've circled around this issue before, but how is it that is it possible for short of obviously being bound or tied down or held down, is it really possible for men to rape other men?
Well, I'm assuming they're kind of big fat guys, right?
Oh, the opera singer is a big fat guy.
The opera singer is a big fat guy. Oh, the other guy's a conductor.
Yeah, so he's fit.
Probably like more of a
wiry guy. Yes, they look exactly like you would imagine in a cartoon.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good team in terms of grappling and brute force. You kind of got your grease man and your strong man there, and I'm assuming the opera student is a little twink.
Yeah, I haven't seen his photo, but although if you're an opera student, you can't. There are no really small opera singers. They're all fairly portly people. You just sort of need that a whole diaphragm thing working to be an opera singer / active gay dude.
For some reason, you're
active
probably
bottom.
right. I was picturing all opera students as being skinny losers, but
I think you're thinking about like violin majors.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking of someone that would actually take an opera class. Like, I don't know how you get into opera, but you're right. If
they look like bears. I would classify more as bears.
You're going to have to take a class at some point. So, yeah, two guys on one could rape a guy.
But so physically, yes, one guy could hold him down, the other guy could sodomize him. Although I don't think that's what's being alleged. I think these cases always come down to more. Plied me with like the Kevin Spacey. They're more like Kevin Spacey stories. They plied me with liquor. They started groping me against my will. Next thing I know, I got a dick in my mouth. Like, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I don't know that, like, we've always said that guys can't be raped by women. I think we've kind of agreed on that.
Yeah.
Unless those like the Nigerian stories where they're like the women are stealing semen for like rituals and using putting a gun to a guy's head and jacking him off. That happens. Literally, that happens. But this seems like more like an encounter in a hotel room. They apply, it got me drunk, loosey goosey, and next thing you know, they're both having sex with me, and I told them to stop, but they wouldn't stop.
Yeah, yeah, because gay guys can get sex so easily, unless you're like the BTK killer,
Right?
Like, why would you need to rape someone really?
Do you? I mean, I guess you. I mean, have you ever heard of like a rape, like actual physical assaultive rape of guys on guys, like where they're actually like, holding the dude down and like sodomizing him with his like, with their face in the cement or
just
something.
in prison.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Not opera singers that also teach at the University of Michigan.
I mean, I'm sure it happens, but yeah, most of the stories are like, well, I kind of wanted to be there anyway, and then we were partying. Just a normal party for gay guys. Just some
Yes.
booze, a little bit of meth, some Special K, a little Molly.
And the sex is like, it's like going to a little bit like going to Cosby's hotel room at 2 a.m. The sex is on the table, and so the guys are going to be. I mean, it's the same with going to the Kevin Spacey after Broadway party. That there's going to be sodomy is definitely on the menu for the evening.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like you said, these are famous. These guys before they were more famous, but an opera singer and a conductor.
These are like the Bill Cosbys of the opera.
Yeah,
world.
married by RBG. You know how much play you could get in the gay world if you were married by RBG. That would just be like you could get any dude to suck your dick, pretty much. I would think. So I'm calling bullshit on this. They're denying the case. They have an attorney. They have money. This guy's going to get paid off, I would assume. Some amount of cash. Although I give anyone who goes to the actual police with these assault allegations some credit, because we live in a world now where so many people are taking non-disclosure agreements or just filing for cash and never reporting stuff to the police. So yes, he waited 8 years, but he did at least put himself on the record with the police and could face criminal charges if he filed falsely. So I give him credit for that. But he's basically just an opera bottom. Matt, I want to ask you about Alaska. You gave me a stat that I guessed, I think, right away. But you asked me which state had the most serial killers. And it turned out to be your home state of Alaska. And not only the most serial killers, but the most violent felons by percentage. Now, granted, there's not a lot of people in Alaska, but by percent of the population. So I'm now going to ask you to defend, without blaming the natives, without Injun baiting, I'm going to ask you to defend Alaska and as to why it may be a lovely place to live despite being so violent.
Well, it's not.
Well, no, it is. Statistically, it's the most violent state.
No. I mean, it's not a great place to live.
Oh, wow. This offensive's taken an ill turn.
Well, I was watching the Ted Bundy series on Netflix.
Is that good, by the way?
Yeah, it's pretty good. If you've forgotten about some of the story, or
Zac Efron's not overly handsome.
No. This is just a documentary.
Oh,
series.
got you.
He actually lived in Seattle in a house that I rented a room from in college.
Really?
Yeah. So
did he murder there?
Not at the house. No.
Okay.
He just lived there.
But did he kill anyone in the Seattle area?
Yeah, he killed a couple.
I only know the Florida murders.
Oh yeah, those were after the Seattle murders. So he got arrested in Seattle for murders, and he wouldn't say who he was, and it was like before the internet, and they like couldn't find out who he was.
Just let him go.
So then I was like, I wonder if there's more, serial killer murders in the Northwest or maybe in Florida or certain parts. And then before I looked it up, I just knew what the answer was going to be, that Alaska was going to be number one.
I always painted the Northwest. It was the Green River Killer, some others. I always painted the Northwest as being the home of serial murder, just cliche-wise.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess there's a few reasons why that I could sort of think of off the bat. In terms of Alaska, if you're a serial killer that's on the run or wanted, or you've committed too many murders in your home state or region, you'll just go to Alaska.
Yes, that's what. By the way, Dexter, the TV show on Showtime, he goes to Alaska to be working logging.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a surprisingly high amount of that going on. Like really, if you move to Alaska and it's not for a very well-paying job in the petroleum industry or,
You're not a nature documentarian or something, animal documentarian.
yeah, and you're not in the military. It's like, why would you possibly want to move there? Like, oh, I like nature. It's like, okay, well, you could live in Washington State
Yes.
and like attend Seahawks games and have access to awesome nature. You could go to Mount Rainier. You got fishing, hunting. It is completely unnecessary to go an extra 2,500 miles northwest.
So you're profiling these people as heavily leaning towards Unabomber-ish type people,
Yeah,
antisocial sort of loners, huge chip on their shoulder, perhaps not wanting to interact with lots of people in the first place.
yeah, that's where you would go. And then I was also thinking if there's a component to the more space you have in a given area because you need to dispose of the bodies. So there's a lot of serial killers.
A practical reason to be there, and it's dark a lot of the year.
Yeah, it's dark and
long nights,
and there's also a lot of other people there that are sort of transient and maybe, not in great standing with the law. People that won't be noticed if they disappear. I mean,
Right.
There's people that live out there that live there because they don't want to talk to anyone or they don't want to talk to their families anymore.
Is there a sense of like sort of live and let live? Like you do not have nosy neighbors there.
Yeah.
Like people are less inclined. If like you have a weird neighbor, you're less inclined. Like if you live in Hollywood and you're a weird neighbor, people call the police on you 75 times a day. Versus, is that the kind of place where if you had a weird neighbor who loved guns, let's say, or had fucking animals dripping blood, like you would just like go, that's just Steve. We leave him alone.
You wouldn't even know his name.
Right.
You could live next to him your whole life and not know his name. Not in that it's L.A. that you don't talk to him. It's just that people don't talk to their neighbors. You might be really good friends with your neighbor, but so you could buy a couple acres of land there. You could buy 10 acres of land and live in a house, and you don't have to be rich to do that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the guy who kidnapped a teenage girl in Wisconsin. And he had it for 3 months, I think, in his his father's hunting house. His father, I think, had passed away. But the neighbors were like 2 miles away, and no one thought anything. They knew the kid was there every now and then, just hanging out, just a loner. But nobody thought of it, and nobody thought like he was up to no good. They just left him alone until the girl escaped.
Right.
But if you had a neighbor like that around here, I mean, you'd be on next door. The guy would have pictures of. You'd have 17 nosy lady neighbors, like tracking him, photos of him, calling the fucking cops till their ears bled.
Yeah, and you'd have like cameras at traffic lights, and you'd have cameras everywhere, just like with Smollett. Like in L.A., there's cameras all Hollywood downtown.
Sure.
There's cameras. There's no cameras in Alaska, as far as I know. Certainly outside of like the major. I don't know if there are any, frankly, but
So you're selling Alaska as a place to go if you want to be sort of a predatory killer.
yeah, it's a real live and let live type of place. I mean, if you feel like you want to not have a lot of regulation on your business, for example,
Right.
or if you feel like you kind of want to start a cult or pull your kids out of school, no one's going to think twice. And so, by that nature, just, being accepting, good-hearted people, if you feel like you need to kill teenage hookers at truck stops, people support that. That's sort of,
literally
you don't want the government getting involved in these things like, hardcore lead pollution or serial murder. We don't trust the government for things
So
like that.
it is actually just the environment of the location is the perfect environment. Just like the homeless come to Los Angeles or go to Florida, Alaska is a place, because it's fucking cold a lot of the year, but it's a place where you can just, if you are a murderer, it is a place, or say a person who likes to lash out violently and blackout drunk on occasion, it's the place to be.
I think so. And
It's not on the brochures.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I would like to see the stats, which would be probably impossible, but how many native-born serial murders there are versus, people from Florida or Seattle that made the trip up.
Do the native tribes have their own police forces?
They have, so for the regions, they'll have a few, but they might be policing like hundreds and hundreds of square miles and have like one guy that oversees like a bunch of different villages. So they'll have like their tribal police basically, which are just people that live there and it's not their full-time job.
Yeah, I think the article, I can't remember. I think it said that like 40% of the towns in Alaska have no police force.
Yeah.
So they're literally just there's not a single cop in town. So you can just like, I mean, everyone's armed.
Well,
of
they
course.
have to call someone in, yeah.
Yeah, that's when they call like a Val Kilmer, 90s Val Kilmer, in to do an investigation of what happened in the Inuit murders, something like that. That never goes well. So basically, you're not defending Alaska at all.
No, I actually had a good friend, I still have a good friend, and his sister, so she lived in one of those little village, they call them villages, and everyone knew that she was in an abusive relationship, and she ended up getting killed, committing suicide.
Yeah.
But everyone sort of knew that there's a good chance that the guy killed her. But when you're in this town, there's no, it's just like a tribal judge. So he grew up there. He grew up in this village, so he knows everyone, and so it's fairly easy to get away with murder. Now that wouldn't count as a serial murder, I don't think. But
no, like
it's just the kind of thing where like people, I wouldn't say look the other way, but like, So
sort of like gangs or Sicilian justice or gang justice in the hood. Like we're going to take care of this. We'll take care of this ourselves.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like the offending guy just ends up disappearing in the river, found in the river like a week later, and everyone's like, that worked out. That worked out well. You're the worst actual like tourist board person for Alaska ever. I've seen the commercials. I don't know. I used to send my grandma up there on cruises, and they always had a good time on the cruise ships going up to wherever they docked and seeing the whales and everything.
Yeah, the cruise ships are awesome. I don't know. Like L.A. and San Francisco are awesome, but there's a whole other part of the country that's not as awesome. I mean, a beautiful coastal, serene, oceanside, quaint little town that's made only for tourists. That has one street.
I've been to the ones in Mexico before where they stop the cruise ship stop, and there's about a 1 mile area where it's all just tourist crap, and it's all very safe. The police are there and everything like that. But they always tell you don't drive more than a mile outside of that area.
Yeah,
you'll be fleeced and decapitated very quickly.
Yeah, go to Fairbanks, man. It'll be a guy hanging outside a pawn shop wearing a basketball jersey and a beanie, and it's 8 degrees out, and it's springtime, and he's riding a BMX bicycle, and it's not like in the brochures everywhere.
Matt, I want to ask you about this big fight that's taking place. We have an email from Aaron who wants to know who had January 2019 as a date when lesbians turned on tranny women. This story is based on, this is growing. We've talked about this for a long time now in sports and other areas with this LGBT and how I have a theory that the T is really dragging down the LGB. Like there's way more LGB people than there are T people. There's way more by population gay people or bisexual people, whatever they call themselves, because they refuse to call themselves gay, than there are actually transgendered people. But
and the T people aren't asexual, so they're also lesbian, gay, or bi,
yes,
or straight.
Yes.
In which case, I mean, straight would be a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
Well, that's what this big story broke. This lesbian chick, she's on the LGBTQ board of Baltimore, the city of Baltimore. And she was kicked off to commit. She's like this butch lesbian, hardcore, straight up lesbian, representing lesbian. She could probably just go with L in the LGBTQ. That's all she cares about, which I think is probably pretty common among a lot of lesbians. The ones I know don't really like gay men that much. They don't like trannies very much. They love them. They love lesbians, but that's about it. And also football. And so she got kicked off the commission because there's a guy they were dealing with who was a male rapist. He raped people with his dick, raped women, but he said
cis rapist.
Yes, but he claimed that he identified as a lesbian and demanded that he be referred to with female pronouns.
Wait, what?
So he was raping women.
Why was he on the?
No, they were discussing his case.
Oh,
he was raping women,
and he claimed he was a lesbian.
He claimed he was a lesbian. because he identified as a woman, which made him a lesbian.
Does he really think he's a lesbian, or he's just trolling?
I think he probably thinks she's a woman, identifies as a woman before the rapes, but he uses penis to rape.
He still has the penis?
I believe so. But the upshot is the lesbian refused to kept calling him he because lesbians don't like people with dicks. And they don't want to pretend that people with dicks are women. And so this lesbian on the board, called him he and him and so forth. And they insisted that she use female pronouns because that's how the rapist wanted to be identified. And when the lesbian refused to do that, they kicked her off the board.
It's kind of hard to not side with the lesbian.
Yes,
on this
of course.
How are we even at the point where we're debating whose side we're on? Wait, so she wants to call a guy with a dick who rapes people a guy, and she's in the wrong?
Yes.
And she's just like a lesbian that's trying to just do lesbian stuff?
Well, because there's a blanket policy for all city matters that you must refer to people by the pronouns they choose, by the gender they identify. By the way, this is the law in California as well, in Sacramento. Just so you know, you can be fined or censored if you don't use the pronouns the person requests when discussing them in public matters. So your own views aside, but this lesbian went on. It was at a conference. Went on to say, basically, among other lesbians, that like we're kind of sick of tranny dudes. I mean, what do you call them? Tranny women, I guess. Men who identify
trans women.
Trans women. Yes. I think she said tranny. Butch would say tranny, and I would love her for it. That we're sick of these identifying as lesbians and so forth. These are just men that we don't like because we're lesbians, like invading our shit and getting the same rights and messing shit up. These are just messed up dudes, and they're not lesbians, and this needs to stop.
And they're dudes. As a lesbian, you'd be offended because they're dudes that are trying to like dip into your lesbian pool,
yes,
and fuck lesbians,
yes.
When and
she basically said this is like, okay, so they got this. She basically called it a fetish, right? And said these are dudes who just like they're not real lesbians. These are guys identifying as women having sex with women. These are just dudes.
Yeah, and
she's apparently that's like you can't say that. But there's now an uprising among the lesbian community. Start against T, hell against T, and saying, "Look, this is fucked up. You're not in the same situation. You're not in the same situation we are." Well, first of all, we were born this way, and maybe you feel the other ways people are born, but they are clearly reimagining their gender, and they are getting all the rights and sort of privileges and special call outs that the lesbians are getting. When again, they're just people with dicks having sex with women.
So it's considered rapey if you tell a woman like, "Oh, I'm a billionaire," and you have like, a fake black card or whatever. If you're essentially a con man trying to,
you can be sued. You can be sued for that.
Misinform a woman.
Actually, go to jail for that.
Or to lie about any number of things, and we've all considered that like very, very much in the sort of deviant, rapey category. Yet you can have a dick, go to a lesbian bar, bring a chick home, pull your dick out, and we're supposed to have your back on that one?
Right.
Like, where are we at? Can we get some consistency here?
I think this is the big rift is going to happen because I think gay people they pulled in the transgender community, and because it just made sense at the time. Because I don't think there were many of them. I think they just started adding letters. I think they just started adding letters. The Q, the A+, all the other stuff they started adding after. It used to be GLAD, right? It used to be, then it was LGB. Mm-hmm. And they just started adding letters because I think they wanted a bigger posse. And these are like people that were like the land of misfit toys, right? They just wanted to add more misfit toys to build their political power. And now I think they're really regretting adding the T because I think they realize that even if you think that gender dysphoria is a real thing and these people have real issues, they don't have the same issues you have. And they're fucking coattailing all your hard work you've done for decades now in the gay community to be accepted.
Yeah, especially since there's just been so much such an upswell with the rights that gays and lesbians have to where there's obviously still discrimination, but I don't feel like they're very much hated, certainly not as much as they used to be. They've made a ton of progress. And I think your average person, like gay marriage is legal now, even like Donald Trump shouts out gay and lesbian people at the Republican convention.
Right.
Still haven't figured that out. But they're pretty much accepted in, cities,
yes,
in good, like major
professional
American cities,
professional middle class, upper middle class environments,
pretty much accepted as normal people. It seems to be that people in the trans community have a higher incidence of personality disorders.
Well, they do psychologically speaking. I mean, not just figuratively. They actually have much more likely to have mental health issues, serious mental health issues.
Yeah, to where they're causing some problems. I don't know if you want them around your kids.
Well, the assumption is that the assumption would be that a lesbian woman would be okay with the person with a dick coming into the ladies' room to use the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why you would assume that a lesbian woman would be more comfortable with that than a heterosexual woman, because they would both feel equally threatened by having male genitalia in the ladies' room. But the assumption is that because you're a lesbian, you're just cool with that,
right?
Because it's on your LGBT tag. It's like,
that's a good point. They're supposed to be
or think men are not as rapey as they know men are.
Right.
Like lesbians don't generally have a great fondness for men. The male. Toxic masculinity and men in general and penises in general.
I haven't found that to be true, but
really,
well, they certainly don't like the jockey types.
Yes, correct. And I think they would be more prone to think that a dude identifying as a woman was just a big faker trying to get over on women.
Yeah. Well, if you've seen, is it Sarah Lawrence? I always forget the names of these elite all women's colleges on the East Coast.
I'll go with Sarah Lawrence. It sounds right.
Say it's Sarah Lawrence. But people are graduating high school, sort of going through high school as boys,
yes,
young men, basically. And then they're deciding that they're trans, and they're applying to these elite all women's colleges as women, as trans women. But you know how a dude in a skirt looks. It's just a guy walking around.
Boy, do I. Yes.
And they're like taking over the student governments. I think you might have sent me this article.
Yeah, probably. And sports and getting sport. You could potentially be in sports scholarships. And there's a whole Title IX thing to deal with, which is now these guys identifying as women must be entitled to the Title IX benefits of scholarships and participation. And so it's again, whether or not you think they're intentionally trying to get over on the system, or whether or not that's just a byproduct of dudes now suddenly identifying as women, it's happening. And I think gay people, lesbians in particular, first and foremost, and feminist, heterosexual feminists, hardcore feminist females are just fucking sick of it. And I think there's going to be a huge I don't know what the battle's going to look like. Maybe like a pickup basketball game or something, some kind of sporting event or gladiator event. But I think the lesbian-led gay community is going to start telling trans people just to shut the fuck up.
Well, I like how your research for this podcast. I'm looking at your list of topics here, and I believe it just says Baltimore lesbian. Yes. So unfortunately, we don't know her name, but I stand with Miss Baltimore lesbian on this one.
Hardcore butch Baltimore lesbian. Imagine a woman, if you will, who's on the Baltimore LGBTQ commission. And you kind of have to figure out in your head. And the other thing too about hardcore lesbians, they're not scared to speak their piece.
No,
they are not scared at all of controversy, saying the wrong things, being politically incorrect. They will, if they get kicked off a commission, they're not going to fucking lilt in the background. They're going to make a big fucking deal about it, and
they welcome an argument.
They welcome a fight. They love to fight. They have the sort of the toxic aspects of toxic masculinity where they love to engage in conflict.
Well, trans women, guys wearing dresses are the same way. They're very argumentative, yes, and they do like to throw punches.
But they will fake cry a lot. They do fake cry a lot. Matt, let me ask you about Howard Schultz. I assume you're not a Howard Schultz fan, the guy from Starbucks, the CEO from Starbucks.
I really don't know much about him.
I don't know much about him other than the fact, all his Starbucks shit. And I always make fun of Starbucks because it's a fucking horrendous place. But there's absolutely no doubt it's like a massively successful business that this guy Schultz built. Basically, I think he started as like a barista when there were like 6 shops in Seattle, and eventually rose out to become the head of Starbucks, and then turned it into this massive national, international 10,000 outlets. Where the fuck? More than McDonald's, I think now. Multi-billionaire, turned into a $100 billion company. And he did all this, unlike Trump, without loans from his father. He grew up in the legitimate projects in Brooklyn. His dad was a truck driver, had no money, put himself through school, started out, like I said, slinging coffee in the store and rose to the top. So, I mean, at least on paper, he has a great origin story.
Yeah.
So he's a billionaire, but absolutely $0 were handed to him in the beginning. So he was completely self-made guy. I mean, there's no literally self-made guy. He had help from other people along the way, but he drove himself to the top. So if you hate billionaires, this is the billionaire not to hate.
Right.
But there's so much anger about this guy entering the race because I suppose because the Democrats think he'll split the vote. He calls himself a liberal. He's more in the vein of like a 90s Bill Clinton liberal, which is be considered like a hard moderate to conservative Democrat now, which don't seem to exist much anymore. But he's in that sort of more Clinton-esque 90s vein.
So he's kind of like socially liberal, but it's basically a Republican on.
Yeah, I mean, I think no, he's for all
Financial.
this. He always did. He always took care of his employees. Starbucks. He made sure they had the health care packages, make sure they had living wages, all that kind of stuff. So he was for all that stuff. But I don't think he's for like open borders. He's not for like he called Medicare for all, like, healthcare. Universal healthcare would be a massively failed proposition. He's a business guy, so he's a.
But he has no experience in politics.
No, none whatsoever.
Okay. So he like his positions at this point is like he's kind of
but as a Starbucks CEO, he's made.
If you don't have a record of doing anything, like
But he's come out in public and commented on public records for the last 10, 15 years. So I think, and he also has a platform position out. And I don't think I'd ever vote for the guy, but I would say you can't slam him personally based on his history. And he's never done anything in his past where you go like it's a disqualifier. He's not like Trump at all. He's the opposite of Trump. There may be no reason for him to run. He's like Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah.
But so there's so much hostility towards this guy running because they think that he's going to draw more votes from the Democrats and Republicans, and then this is the only way Trump, who can only get like 40% of the vote, could possibly win again. But I don't know how you feel. I think the more people in, like, the more is the better. More is better. He's going to have different. Like, nobody at all has mentioned, like, what do you think about Syria and Afghanistan to the guy? They call him like the head of Starbucks. Now people are like calling for a Starbucks boycott, saying there's a big story that one of the outlets, HuffPo or BuzzFeed, someone put out saying now the music in Starbucks stores is really white. Like they always put out, it's overly
true, isn't it?
Of course it's true, but I assume most of their customers are white and they play fucking sappy.
Plus they're trying to drive out the homeless people.
Yes. No, I literally have to put on headphones before I walk into Starbucks. It's just like you might hear Frank Sinatra. You might hear soft jingly music. I guess that's white person Christmas music. I don't know what it is, but I think also there's a reason they do that. It's probably not racist. It's probably what plays to their demo.
I'm tired of fucking Democrats telling you like who you can and can't vote. Like if you want to get votes as a party, how about you like be good at what you're doing and inspire people to vote for you? Like all they have left is shaming you for not voting for them because you think there's a better party or candidate. And obviously if you're going to vote Democrat, there's no one's split between who they're going to vote for in president in terms of Democrat or Republican.
No. But
if you said to a Democrat, I'm going to vote Libertarian, they'd be like, oh, you're unpatriotic. And
they called Jill Stein, was it the Green Party lady?
Yeah.
She got like death threats from people claiming that she took like Wisconsin votes away from like Hillary because she was a Green Party person that cost like Hillary the election for the whatever 1% of the vote she got, which may technically be correct if you crunch the numbers in various districts. But isn't it better that we have like multiple people like presenting points of view and then let people vote however they want? And yeah, worst case scenarios, Trump gets elected again. But aren't we better off as a precedent to say like, look, if you're a legitimate person, legitimate presidential candidate, you should be allowed to speak. And maybe people I don't find him interesting at all, but maybe people like him. And plus they don't even know who the Democratic candidate's going to be yet. So you're basically saying, I don't even know who the candidate's going to be, but you have to go with that person no matter who it is.
And you have to vote for us just because we have a D next to our party's name. And they don't stand for anything. And all they have left to do is to tell you not why you should vote for them, but just tell you need to vote for them because they're better than the alternative.
Well, the anti-Trump vote is going to be massive, obviously. So there's, if Trump can only get 40% of the vote, because there's only 40% of people who absolutely vote for Trump, and there's a very, very small number after that who might vote for him. He didn't get 50% last time. It's unlikely he'll get 40 to 42%. So yes, having a split vote is the only way that he probably wins again. But at the same time, it doesn't mean the third person can't win, and it also doesn't mean that third person can't drive the conversation. Like, for instance, I would just love one person to say we need to get out of Afghanistan, which not a single person ever mentions.
Well, obviously the Democrats want a hardcore two-party system.
Yes. They both sides do. It benefits them both.
Yeah, it benefits both of them, and they're in alignment on 80% of all the shit anyway. So yeah, I'm going to vote for whoever I want. It'll probably be the Democratic candidate. I don't know if Trump will still be there or not, or I might not. I voted for Gary Johnson last time.
I've decided to vote for Ocasio-Cortez if she ever has topless photos. So I'm very, very rational about it. She's too young. She's only 29. She can't run for president yet. And by the way, if I could give her advisors some advice, I would say stop commenting on everything, including now she's got a big skincare thing out, which she's talking about her skincare routine.
This is going to wear thin pretty quickly.
I think so. Although she is the most attractive person in Congress, so I think she has a longer lifespan than most. So most of those really ugly.
How old do you have to be president? 35?
35, yeah. She's got a while.
She could be looking pretty good. How old is she now? 29?
29.
She'll look good when she's 35.
Yeah, she'll look good. She got this enormous. One thing that I don't speak about is her enormous rack. She just has an enormous rack she hides.
Yeah.
But in the old photos of her, you see it. So I'm just saying, like, a busty, fairly attractive president would be a great thing.
Yes.
Although I don't really, she just strikes me as not very intelligent. But that's okay. We have a not very intelligent guy now. We haven't blown up yet, so we'll probably be okay.
She'll learn a bunch of stuff. You think
so? She's inherently I think Hillary Clinton is a very smart woman. She's a wholly unlikable person, but she's intellectually a very smart person. I think Ocasio-Cortez is a likable person who's really dumb, and I don't know who rises to the top. I don't know how far you can go.
Why do you think she's dumb?
Just I've heard her speak. She's just not very Hillary Clinton is cunning, but only smart people can be cunning good. She's actually sinister. But you can't be dumb and sinister. It just doesn't work. At some level, to be sinister, you have to be intelligent. Otherwise, you just come off as idiotic.
So like Trump.
Yeah, like Trump, exactly. You end up misspelling shit in your tweets and saying shit that isn't true. And not because you're lying, but because you just don't know the truth or because you're just dumb and don't know basic information. So
part of being dumb is overestimating how smart you are, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he does that for sure.
So you think you're the smartest guy in the room. Meanwhile, most people in the room know exactly what it is you're doing and trying to do.
Yeah, I don't think you need a fake. I mean, I think, like I said, the Clintons are legitimately smart. Obama's a smart guy. Bush, not quite as smart, but a very affable guy. I guess he got pretty far, but he had huge family connections. I don't see her going that far. Unless she goes topless, then I'm got me and 20 guys will vote for her. Matt, here's a story of hot white chick slavery that I want to end the show on today. So Amy writes about, do you know who I've mentioned her name before, and you always tell me you don't know who she is. Yolanda Hadid. She is the model mother of Bella Hadid and the other one. I don't remember her name. The two supermodel
Gigi.
Daughters. Gigi, yes.
No, I don't. I'm going to look her up later.
So she was a Dutch model in her teens and 20s, and she married Mohammed. You know who Mohammed Hadid is? He is Egyptian, I believe, Egyptian-born, the biggest real estate guy in Bel Air. He was the biggest. Had all these mega properties in Bel Air. Mm-hmm. He was always the guy selling the $150 million house in Bel Air. He made a huge amount of money in real estate and is hated by every person in Bel Air because he just violated every single housing and zoning, paid off everybody for every zoning law. He wanted to build mega mansions across the west side of Los Angeles.
He's Egyptian. What do you think he's going to do?
No, he might be Jordanian. I'm just saying Egyptian, but he is. So she married him, rich guy. Then she moved on to David Foster, the songwriter. David Foster's written a million hits. So forth. And then she had these two beautiful daughters, and then she faked Lyme disease and started going through her poop and doing all this other shit. And then she became the mom of daughters who were more attractive and popular than she was. And I think that made her crazy. But here's the thing, Matt. As Amy notes, she took out all her implants, and this is a big story on her this week. She took out all her. She's like 50s now. Took out all her implants and stopped her Botox and fillers, and claims she's finally free. She's finally free, liberated from the slavery of the conditioning of society towards how women should look. Now, the question Amy wants to know is, does the conditioning of society technically own any slaves? So, this is a question of women feeling like they have to get like massive amounts. By the way, I would assume her Lyme disease, her fake Lyme disease conditions are probably related to all the fucking cosmetic procedures she has done. Botox, fillers, all that stuff has to be unhealthy for you at some level. So if she's experiencing fatigue and
botulism.
Yeah, but I mean, just the implants alone, I just, if you start introducing lots of foreign material to your body, I would think that's much more likely to give you chronic fatigue and fevers and all this other stuff rather than a Lyme disease that nobody thinks, the doctor seems to think exists.
Yeah, and being married to a creepy businessman that you hate and popping pills all day, and God knows. I mean,
yeah, all that.
Are we to assume that she's just living off beet juice? And I mean, maybe she's living a horrendous lifestyle.
I'm sure she is. Well, she has. She does blood transfusions, and she makes her daughter get blood transfusions. But that's a story for another day. But so here's you hear this refrain commonly where women are saying that they are victim, whether it be the money they spend on fashion or having to get or getting breast implants or so on and so forth, that they are victims of basically they're implying the patriarchy. The society conditions women to believe they have to be these beautiful sex objects, and therefore women are going to these extremes, torturing themselves with implants, Botox, fillers to fit the mode of what society had told them they must be. Is that true, or is really this just something that affects rather shallow, vain women? I looked up the stat. I look at stats. So less than 4% of women in the U.S. have fake tits.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Numbers wise, I mean, that's a lot of women.
It is. I mean, there's a lot, and does not include the cancer patients, mastectomies, reconstructive surgery, just plastic surgery. So it's but once you get it, you have it forever. So imagine it's not each year. It's only a small fraction of 1% who get breast implants.
Right.
You have for 20 years, 25 years. So it's I think it's 300,000 a year, something like that. Women get breast implants.
Okay.
I have a friend who does breast implants. He makes a good living. So,
I'm sure he does.
Perhaps more common in Los Angeles and New York than in Nebraska, but it's still a good number. And by the way, they're cheap surgeries now. So, and in some cases, if you fudge your health insurance, you get them covered by health insurance. So
I don't think she was under pressure from anyone to get breast implants. I think she decided, if I get breast implants, it'll help me marry this creepy businessman.
Yes.
I will have to do less work.
Yes.
I will then divorce him. I know that he has a lot of money, so I'll get a settlement or some alimony. Then I'll marry some other guy, again, probably based in part on my big, fake, giant tits.
Yes.
And
my perfect Botox skin and my fillers and everything else, and on my hair and everything else that makes me look perfect, and my girdles or whatever else.
Yeah, and not do any reading or work on my intellect or personality or anything. Rely solely on my tits. No one pressured you to do that or even asked you to do that. That's your decision.
Like, how many female, say, PhD candidates do you think have fake breasts? It's probably lower.
Very
a
few.
lot lower. And by the way, so the 4%, if society was conditioning women that they have to have, say, big fake breasts to get ahead, why would only 4% of the population have them? Like, how can it be this massive conditioning program that only affects 4%? Now, of course, tons of women spend money on makeup and clothes they don't need, and spend hours in the bathroom trying to make themselves look right. And they'll always tell you that they spend, you got dressed in 10 minutes. They had to spend an hour to look right for work or whatever.
I had that thrown at me as justification when I was complaining on Twitter about how feminist women who are professionals still expect a man to pay for a lot of their stuff, especially on dates, to pay for dinners. And one of the, which was really the only sort of rational response I got, the rest were like, fuck you, we deserve this, and we haven't really thought about what you're saying, was that women have to spend a lot of money on cosmetic products and makeup and stuff.
They do spend a lot of money on that.
They don't have to.
No, of course not.
But to compete with other women as a sort of standard, they have to spend more than men do. I don't think it's a legitimate gripe by any means, but I get that.
I think this is I don't know, matriarchy is the right word. This is a matriarchal conspiracy. Now, yes, at some point, all the makeup, clothing, fashion, all these other places that make billions of dollars off women's insecurities, used to be owned by men and run by men, but now they're largely run by women and good measure owned by women, more and more so. The female magazines was playing to the consumer mentality for the women. You have to have this, you have to have that. No one's going to love, your hair has to be perfect. No one's going to care about you. You'll never find a boyfriend. You'll never get hired. You'll never marry Muhammad Hadid and live in an $80 million mansion in Malibu unless you have big fake tits. That all seems to be run by, pressured by, and promoted by women, certainly now for a long time. I don't really see guys ever pressuring. I don't know guys pressuring like women or girlfriends or certainly not sisters or anybody else to like spend more effort on their superficial looks. Like, you need more makeup. You should buy nicer clothes. Like, if you had nice tits, you would get head.
You're already attracted to her, or you wouldn't be with her. And by the way, there's plenty of guys like myself, and it's probably common, or at least not uncommon, that you're not attracted to a woman that looks like a whore.
Yeah, big fake tits and everything.
I mean, I had a girlfriend. I ended up dating her for about 5 years, but it must have been roughly 6 months to a year into the relationship, and she said to me, we were sitting in a bar, and she said, I have the money right now. If you want me to get implants,
right?
I'll do it. And I said, so I saw where this would become a real problem.
Right. There'd be your implants.
Oh yeah, everything I did. I
got implants for
parked
you.
the car wrong.
Yes.
No, you made me get the
silicone. I got dangerous silicone Dow chemicals in my chest.
It would have taken a week to spring up. And I said, no, I don't think you need implants. I'm not really into implants. But even if I was, I would have said the same thing.
And even if you were, you would have said something. And even if you were a guy who was kind of like, unless you're on the real edge of the spectrum of being a sort of a gross dude, you would never comment negatively on a woman's looks and tell her she needed to fix up her looks. I mean, guys just don't tell women to fix up their looks. Yeah, the guys don't go to women and say like, look, you're never gonna get a boyfriend unless you like fucking get a nose job, or unless you like buy nicer shoes, or unless you get better makeup, you're never gonna get ahead in life. That's not something guys.
That is something like a first generation dad would say to their daughter, though.
I think it's the opposite. I think the dad would say to the daughter, like, you gotta tart up less. Like, you gotta be like, I don't know. I mean, that's the dad circles I'm in.
I could see him just saying your appearance. You have to go to the gym. Something like that. I don't know.
There's always like, Orange County is famous for this, but a lot of the girls down there get implants when they're like for their 16th birthday, if not then for their 18th birthday. And I think it's all moms pushing that stuff. I don't think there's any dad. First of all, it's creepy. I don't think there's any dads going like, we're going to get you some fake tits for your thing. It's always a daughter with peer pressure asking her mom to convince the dad that they need to have larger breasts for success in whatever the fuck they're doing.
For sure. It's almost unheard of. And if I was a dad that had a 16-year-old daughter and my wife came to me and said we need to get her implants for her 16th birthday, I'd be like, I have made a horrible mistake.
Yes.
You're fucking psychotic. And no, I'm not paying for that. We can get a big cake.
Yes.
We can go to Dave and Buster's. Tell her friends, we'll order all you want at Chili's. But no, I'm not buying her fake tits.
Maybe
it's an
earrings.
elective procedure,
Maybe earrings.
Did you look up the chance of infection or complications?
Oh, there's always, especially if you get it done, if you get the cheaper jobs done, there's all these fake, anyone can really do plastic surgery. It's kind of like the thing, if you have a doctor's degree license, you can always sort of do that liposuction, Botox, fillers, all that stuff. So there was that time when like dentists were doing all this shit like on the side because just to make extra, because it's a cash business. You can make yourself an extra fucking 100, 200 grand a year just by having people on the weekends come to your office and doing all this shit. And you're legally allowed to do it. But I don't, this is not it is a condition. There's definitely a condition of society, but it is female magazines, female TV shows, female celebrity, Kardashian celebrities, everybody else pushing product and this look on women that I've never seen guys condition women, insist on women be part of this before. Never, ever seen
I don't even think it's as much as you said about, I don't think it's conditioning on anyone's part. I think women naturally want to present themselves as well as possible to attract men, and some of them think this is a viable option for some reason.
Well, the media,
and it is
the media
sometimes.
I know you don't get female magazines probably, but like the female celebrities, female media, they do push. They're all pushing fucking Maybelline products. They're all pushing the hair. You saw the, even like that. Remember the thing from a year ago, like the Girls' Life, Boys' Life covers difference. Boys' Life was like, be an astronaut, build an app, whatever. And the girls was like, get the perfect hair so Bobby will notice you at the dance, kind of thing. Right. So they are playing. It is a natural aspect, I think, of the female condition, but they're playing into it to sell, to make money.
Yeah.
Just like dudes with fucking health and fitness GNC ads. I mean, the GNC ad is just like, you, insecure male, open up your wallet and give us cash for shit that doesn't do anything for you. Like, hair care, the balding man, the wussy man. Now there's like the
penis dysfunction,
testosterone. Yeah, that men have their own thing. And by the way, those companies all make a fucking fortune. So insecure men are spending their money on completely different things, but for the same reason. But there's no patriarchy that's forcing Yolanda Hadid to keep go to get Botox shots in her face. All right, Matt, that's our show for today. You got something you wish to pimp and promote?
MattRalston.net, the Matt Ralston at Instagram.
Will you be flying for secret missions to Chicago to take care of your outspoken submissive bottoms that are talking too much in public?
I'm debating, I don't know, because I'm usually, what am I, 4 for 4, 5 for 5 in terms of calling out recent fake publicity stunts, but I didn't quite want to go on record with this guy.
It's hard because he's a gay and black, and it's such a horrific sounding crime.
Yeah,
the bleach and the noose and the MAGA hat.
I wouldn't want to be wrong.
No, it had Charlottesville kind of written all over it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be like on the wrong side of that. But at the same time, it was very. Also, people don't mention it was like negative 10 degrees outside, if not colder, at 2 a.m. in Chicago because of the polar vortex. You got to be a really dedicated white supremacist, alt-right, like sort of activist Aryan to want to go out at 2 a.m. at negative temperatures to pull off an elaborate assault that leaves almost no bodily injuries on a gay black Jewish guy.
I just realized too, how cold was it? -10?
-10, I think they said.
Well,
I mean, you're from Alaska. That probably doesn't move you too much.
No, it's cold, but
for a guy from Alabama, that'd be fucking cold.
Well, at a certain temperature, if you pee outside and it's -40, it'll turn into ice before it hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. I always heard that. Never been able to experience that.
It's pretty fun, actually. You should try it once.
I was in -30 and put a 6-pack of beers, room temperature 6-pack of beers outside to chill, and came back 6 minutes later and exploded.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I cried over that.
It is nice to not, to have snow and just put the beers in there, though,
yes,
and just have them outside. And but at a certain point, liquid will freeze, obviously. And I know bleach is a base.
I don't know. I don't think bleach would freeze, but I think the people would freeze.
What would bleach not? Does bleach?
That probably does at some temperature. Maybe they must take it out of their redneck van, though.
I think it would freeze faster than water.
4
but
by
I don't
4.
know that.
I just think stalking somebody at -10 would be really pain in the ass. I don't know if you know any people like who would ever be capable of something like this, but I lived among rednecks before. They're really fucking lazy. They're impulsive, lazy, and they only do things kind of when they're drinking.
Yeah.
So plotting, serious plotting is not their strong point.
And I don't know that area, but I don't know what the parking situation is like. The logistics of simply pulling off the stalking, unless they were in the same bar, it doesn't make sense.
No, none makes sense. I'm sorry. We'll have this figured out by next week's show. All right, this is Lex Lastmer. Talk to you next week.
Starbucks, tastes like fish and